Welcome to Author Update, your source of publishing news that actually matters to your career and cultural zeitgeist analysis you can't find anywhere else and that might make you a little angry.
Oh, good. Anger. This is the way.
We are your oven mitt for culture's hot button issues.
This week, Barnes & Noble dropped a corporate memo that ends the easy front table book signing. Can you meet the new standard? A copyright lawsuit stretched 4 years and finished with a $3.4 million fee against the plaintiff.
Dun, dun,
Claude
dun.
is now stamping an invisible watermark on every text you paste in, and it travels with every copy-paste. X released the actual production weights behind its ranking algorithm, and one link share will beat 40 likes. Let's update.
And our leading story is Barnes & Noble is cracking down on local author events. You've dreamed of sitting in front of the store at Barnes & Noble, and that dream may never become a reality, and that may not be a bad thing. Jonathan?
So, according to Jane Friedman at the bottom line, Barnes & Noble stores nationwide received a corporate memo on how to handle local author events. The memo restricts which authors stores will accept. Friedman reports that stores hosted many local events in recent years, but they produced little profit or little meaningful impact. One bookseller summarized the core instruction as a rejection of the practice that places a table at the front of the store and allows the author to approach passing customers. In those cases, the local author gains foot traffic from the store without bringing extra customers of their own. The new guidelines will require that stores should avoid front-of-store tables for local authors who lack a proven draw. Stores should decline authors who cannot demonstrate a following. Events must generate additional customers rather than rely solely on existing store traffic, and application of the rules will vary by store manager. So they are still giving them the freedom to manage things as they will. Thomas, what do you think about that?
So these kinds of awkward tables where a local author sits awkwardly at a table trying to get complete strangers to buy their book is awful. It is terrible for the author.
Introverts too. It's like all of it is the worst.
Most authors are really bad at that conversation. 99 out of 100 people would never buy your book because even if it was the most bestest book in your genre, because they just don't read your genre. And so you have these authors who are trying to convince somebody to read a romance when they've never read a romance before in their life, or a zombie book, or a horror, or a business nonfiction. It's like everything about it is awkward for the author, and it's awkward for the customer. I've been the customer walking into a Barnes & Noble or the Canadian version of the Barnes & Noble, which they have a different company up there, but it's very similar business model. And I remember it being so awkward. And especially because it's Canada, you're supposed to be nice and polite. And I'm like, I don't want to buy your book. Please stop talking to me as a customer. And this strategy of book signings I have never advocated for it, especially in this way, because it doesn't work.
What, you mean introverts reaching out to introverts? Like that part of it?
It's just not a good strategy. There are book signings that can work, but typically book signings that work are for people who've already bought your book. So this is one of those to him who has, more will be given type techniques. And that's not what people are wanting. What they're wanting is I'm not getting very many sales, so I'm going to go to an author event at this Barnes & Noble to try to boost my sales. And it doesn't accomplish that goal. And it's bad for the Barnes & Noble because customers are going to go online if they keep getting approached by these awkward authors of these books that nobody wants to buy, and they have to like walk their way past it. It's kind of like we recently got a Costco membership, and to like escape Costco, you have to walk past all these salespeople who are trying to sell you house stuff. And it's like, I don't want house stuff. Or even if I do want house stuff, because actually my house is in shambles right now and we're living in our crisis home. I'm living with my parents. I still don't want to talk to them. I want to get out of the store. And so it's just not a good strategy. Some versions
you should have a face like mine. They never bother me.
Yeah. Some versions of this strategy that do work or could work that I suspect the local Barnes & Nobles will still be willing to do. One is the party strategy of like, hey, Barnes & Noble, I want to do my launch party at your Barnes & Noble. I'm going to bring 50 people. That sort of thing can work really well. I still don't recommend doing launch parties at a Barnes & Noble, because if you do a launch party at your house or at a park or at your church, you can sell the book yourself and keep all the money. Whereas if Barnes & Noble sells your book, they keep almost all of the money.
You can also make food. Like,
Yeah, and
there's
you can,
like so many regulations.
you can have food, you can theme it. I have a whole protocol on launch parties. I think I'm teaching it actually at the Novel Marketing Conference this year. And it's a really cool. You can do a lot with a good launch party. So even then, I don't recommend it at Barnes & Noble. So this is a loss for authors. It's a tool that's getting taken out of the author toolbox for most authors who want to use it, but it's a tool that didn't do a very good job.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too concerned about this. And keep your chin up.
Oh no, I can't buy this shovel anymore that broke every time I put it in the ground. It just made me mad.
Yeah, it's like that toy my kids keep wanting at the dollar store that lasts for 30 minutes and then breaks. And it's like, I don't want to keep buying this toy. It just makes mess.
It breaks in the checkout line. What are we doing?
So it's like the dollar store doesn't sell the broken toy anymore. And I'm like, thank God. Now we can start buying real toys.
This does not affect me at all. Barnes & Noble is not a part of my strategy at all. I think it's just something that gets stuck in new authors' heads because the only bookstore they know right now is Barnes & Noble. And so it's a big deal to them to have their book in Barnes & Noble and sell there. Do it one time and you'll experience the loneliness and,
And Doc Brown actually has an interesting comment. She says, my mom had the biggest signing our local Barnes & Noble ever had. Their entire church came out for it. They ran out of books, and my dad had to bring more from home. So I suspect this kind of book signing where you're able to convince the Barnes & Noble, hey, I'm bringing my whole church here for this event. They still have permission to say yes if you can convince them that you're going to bring people, but you have to convince them, I'm going to bring people to your Barnes & Noble, because they are wanting you to do them a favor. They're not wanting to do
I don't see the gain here for the author unless there's some kind of Barnes & Noble strategy you're trying to pursue, because you're just sharing commission at that point. You could have just done the launch party at the church.
Exactly, which is what I did. My church allowed me to host my launch party at the church, and I sold or distributed hundreds of books, and it was full retail price. And it was a dance because my book was on dating and relationships, and it was great. So
not a Baptist church. Okay, got it.
Definitely not a Baptist church. Moving on.
Don't tell that one joke,
Yeah.
All
beware before you sue. One author's $3.4 million copyright lesson. Jonathan?
So, according to Copyright Lately, a federal judge has ordered Lynn Freeman to cover the defendant's legal fees after her copyright lawsuit against Tracy Wolf's Crave series failed. The court found the claims objectively unreasonable and brought in extremely bad faith. Defendants estimated those fees at more than $3.4 million. Freeman must also post a $150,000 bond while she appeals. Judge Colleen McMahon of the Southern District of New York granted the fee motion on July 28th. She applied the Supreme Court's Kurtzsang factors and concluded the lawsuit met the unreasonableness standard from the outset. The judge stated that awarding fees could deter others from bringing unreasonable claims based on a cost-benefit analysis that tells such plaintiffs that they can score big if they win, and there will be no adverse consequences if they lose. Freeman, herself a lawyer, and her counsel prolonged the case across 4 years and 3 judges. They withheld the manuscripts for months as a tactical choice to block an early motion to dismiss, making the final judge read 6,000 pages of romantasy before ruling that the works shared only common genre tropes. Yeah, I'd rule against you too and make you pay for that.
There are some fates worse than death. So this is a really common tactic in Hollywood where people will sue a Hollywood studio for quote unquote stealing their idea. But this is something that you have to keep. So what it sounds like is she was trying to fish for a settlement by just racking up the fees. But the downside is that can blow up in your face, where now she's basically or very likely going to have to declare bankruptcy. Like, I doubt she's got.
You made a judge read romantasy.
Like, you have to sell a lot of romantasy to get $3.4 million to pay this back. But also, this is just compensation for lawyers' fees. So the defendant had to pay $3.4 million in legal fees to defend herself from this other author. And the real lesson here is that copyright law is not for you, the human. So there's this myth, a particularly common I found with unsuccessful authors or unpublished authors, where they really think that copyright is like their path to riches, and that the copyright system is designed to protect their intellectual property. It's like, absolutely not. The copyright laws were tweaked over 100 years by Disney lobbyists, and in no way are they for the benefit of regular people. And the whole arena is an arena that's so expensive to play in that we don't have stories of regular authors who sued and won. What we have are stories like this, which are authors who sue and lose. And this would not have worked against a big company, this attack, because the big company could have gone out as long as the author attacking them. And a company could have reversed this tactic if they had a big enough war chest and gone after regular human authors. So copyright law is kind of fundamentally broken. I really don't believe in it. I've talked about this extensively on the podcast. It really only benefits Universal, Disney, Warner Brothers, Sony, and like a dozen other companies, Fox Corp, News Corp. And it really needs to get reworked. But I will try. We have more news than we've ever had before to cover, so I'm going to get off my soapbox on copyright law, but just be aware that going to court, you've already lost when it comes to copyright stuff.
It's not always true. There have been some cases where there was egregious copyright violation and the little guy was able to win, but you've got to be able to prove that, and it's got to be so clear that they really can't drag it out. And the
person you're suing has to have money, so that the $150,000 or $200,000 that you spend to sue them, you have a chance of getting it back. Because if you sue some nobody for violating your copyright, you get a claim, but you don't get any money, and you don't get your fees back either.
Yeah. So don't start a lawsuit because you're angry about it. Like, this is romantasy. It's like all the same anyway. You're not like, what are you gonna win here?
There was
that was the judge's conclusion, was like, these are just tropes. Like, you
can't copyright tropes.
Yeah. And so nothing was actually stolen. You wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. I'm going to make an example out of you.
You weren't the first person to do romance with a vampire. You're not the last person to do romance with a vampire. You don't get to own romance with a vampire.
Oh, yeah. Let's move to author alerts. Thomas, you've got one for us.
Yes. So between my house getting destroyed and being completely inoccupable right now and the new baby, I am woefully behind on email. Just like terribly, terribly behind on email. And so I have made AI Thomas free for everyone. I was going to make it free only for like free patrons. You'd have to sign up for my Patreon at the free level, but that wasn't working, and it was too busy to troubleshoot it. And so I'm like, whatever, I'm just making it free for everyone. So if you're not familiar, AI Thomas is a chat bot that has been trained on all my 500, almost 600 episodes on publishing and marketing. And when you ask it a question, you can ask it really detailed career questions, technical website questions, really anything I've talked about on the podcast, which over all these years is everything basically. And it will give you a really detailed answer along with links to relevant episodes that will answer your questions in more detail. So you can use it as a search engine. You could use it as a answer engine. And right now it's free. I'm not saying it's going to be free forever, but please ask AI Thomas before you email Human Thomas. Human Thomas is drowning in emails. Everything is a crisis. I just can't even. So just ask AI Thomas. You can find it at, I don't know if I own aithomas.com, but I do own authormedia.com. So just go to authormedia. It's under resources, AI Thomas. That particular one is free. All the other patron tools are still for patrons only.
So you can ask AI Thomas your questions while real life Thomas rocks in the corner holding his knees and weeping softly. All right, next story. You need to update your WordPress site right now. According to WordFence's technical analysis of the WP2 shell exploit, I'm going to throw a lot of terms at you people you may not understand. For those of you
Yeah,
that do understand,
I'll just give the TLDR.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. For those of you that do understand, great. For
all
the
you
rest
need
of
to
you,
understand
update.
is you have to update your WordPress right now before the end of this episode, and make sure you update all of your plugins. Just do that and you'll be fine. WordPress releases patches for found vulnerabilities. We've just had the vulnerability apocalypse because all the AIs that got really good at hacking in the last month. And so every single open source tool, including Linux, including WordPress, all had big kahuna vulnerabilities found. And what's nice about open source is that they get patched typically the same day. But it being patched and you installing the patch are not the same thing. So if your host doesn't automatically update your WordPress, and I know some of your hosts do, but just log in, just make sure everything's up to date, keep things up to date, particularly quickly for the rest of the year. Because we're going through this AI apocalypse, you can have us tell you about poison JSON injection and SQL injection and all that. Or you can just take my word for it. Because the thing is, the people who understand what those phrases mean already know to keep their WordPress websites up.
That's also true. Yeah. Yeah. So update your stuff. Check it maybe once a week. Just go into your backend once a week and check for updates.
You don't need to install any fancy security plugins or buy anything. WordPress is very secure as long as you keep it up to date. And paying for a fancy security plugin and not keeping your website up to date is worse than just keeping it up to date for free.
Yeah. All right. Next alert. Barack Obama starts a book podcast.
So don't say you're too cool to start a book podcast. If a former president can do it, you can do it.
According to Publishers Weekly, Audible and Higher Ground announced a great book with Barack Obama, a 6-part series launching exclusively on Audible on September 24th. Obama will discuss the titles that shaped his life with still unnamed luminaries, covering The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, Song of Solomon, and other books. Authors of backlist classics and literary fiction gain a high visibility discovery engine that can drive print, ebook, and audio sales through presidential level attention. So all you have to do, guys, is get the president to read your book and love it.
No, that's not the take. So some people are like, oh, I'm too cool for a podcast. No, you're not. Nobody's too cool for a podcast. Book podcasts are so cool that even Obama
podcasts take literally everybody. Let's just
it is interesting because so much of the political discourse has moved away from television, which really doesn't work for political discourse. It's too combative, it's too quick, it's too rapid fire. And if you want combative rapid fire, Twitter is more combative and more rapid fire. And if you want long, drawn out, in-depth conversation, podcasts are better for that. So all of the political conversation has moved away from books, actually. There's a little bit of political conversation happening between books coming out, but most of it is happening between podcasters and people on X tweeting back and forth, which is a fascinating shift. It's almost like a mini Zeitgeist shift where the political conversation is happening. And I feel bad for people who still are watching the news, because let's say Obama does an interview on MSNBC, is your show, and he's going to talk for 5 minutes and then they're going to go to a commercial, right? Even if you really like Obama and you want his analysis on the current topic, you're getting 5 minutes and it's delayed and dated and edited. You're much better off following Obama on X for his right away takes, or listening to his podcast. And the same is true on the other side of the aisle.
So our final alert? No, it's not.
No, we have so many
other alerts. Holy cow. So real quick, the final numbers are in. Indie publishing climbs 8.4%, while traditional publishing growth stalls. According to the Association of American Publishers, the StatShot annual report recorded $33.4 billion in total U.S. publishing revenue, which is a 2.5% nominal increase from 2024. That's a decline when you include inflation rate. You get real industry revenue declining by approximately 0.1%. Kindle Unlimited Fund and related author payouts saw an 11.2% nominal increase. After that inflation adjustment, real growth in KU author payments is about 8.4%. 2025 numbers have revealed two publishing economies. Traditional revenue stood still once inflation was removed. The KU fund expanded in both nominal and real terms. Authors who treat Kindle Unlimited as a primary channel rather than as a secondary experiment captured the only real growth available last year.
This isn't news. If you listen to Author Update regularly, we've been covering the monthly StatShot reports. This is just the annual StatShot report that kind of takes all the numbers, combines them, and says, yep. Now, you have to be really careful because most other news sources covering this are covering a 2.5% growth number as actual growth and are reporting it as good news because they're not adjusting for inflation and they're not comparing to indie sales, which is what we try to do every time. We do those two things. We adjust for inflation and we compare to indie sales. And once you do that, the story entirely changes. And a 0.1% decline isn't really a decline. That's just a holding flat, right? That's within the realm of fluctuation. But indies are not seeing that decline.
Yeah, for the comparison, not for if indies were doing the same thing, then that would just be a general market state. But because one side is clearly growing and doing better and the other one is holding stagnant, there needs to be some technique shift over on the trad side of things.
Well, indie is where all of the innovation is, both in terms of storytelling. It's the indies are the ones using AI. The indies are the ones experimenting with new genres and new writing techniques, and the indies are the ones experimenting with new marketing techniques. And so they're the ones gaining all the growth. Whereas the traditional publishers are doing the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah, I would say traditional publishing operates on a fear-based economy, which is we don't do anything new because we might lose money on it. And indie doesn't have that, there's not really losing as much when they try something new. So
in humorous news, your manuscript's file name just became a ranking factor if your agent or publisher that's reviewing it is using AI. Jonathan?
So according to Zachary Horvitz's X post, renaming an uploaded PDF from paper.pdf to paper_final_draft_pdf_ready_for_review.pdf raises average LLM review scores by 0.19 points on a 0 to 10 scale. That's like nothing. Horvitz tested GPT 5.6 Terra on 50 CS papers dated 2026-806 and found the longer name produced a mean gain of plus 0.19 with a 95% confidence interval for I'm not giving those numbers.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you've been naming your files final version 3, this time it's for real .doc, you're in good company, and the AI prefers it. Not that we're trying to thrill the AI with your file names. I will say this: we had a rule at the one of the marketing firms I worked at, where if you ever saved a file with the word "final" in the file name, the server would automatically delete it because it was always a lie. So you had to always just use version names. So there's no such thing as a final version, just the most recent version.
Oh yeah. And so just name your the book file that you're uploading to Amazon, just name it, the best book that was ever written by the best author ever.
One more author alert that's some housekeeping news, but the Chapterizer now accepts raw audio. This is a big breakthrough I'm very excited about. So if you're not familiar, the Chapterizer is a dictation cleanup tool that I created that takes raw dictation and turns it into a rough draft. So it fixes homophones, it adds punctuation, it puts quotes and paragraph breaks in all the right places. But other than that, it doesn't edit your text. So other than changing there to there, which is there and there, or it's a common dictation mistake, it'll fix that, but it won't edit it in any other way. And how it used to work, and it still works this way if you want it to, where you just paste in your rough transcription and you push the button, it cleans it up. Now you can just upload your MP3 of you talking, and it will give you a transcription cleaned up.
Thomas's AI would do fun things if it did that kind of thing, because it would why does my fantasy novel say MailChimp is garbage?
So what it doesn't do currently, a current limitation is it can't distinguish multiple speakers. So what I couldn't do is take this episode of Author Update and upload it and get a transcription. It would combine it all into one transcription, combining Jonathan's voice and my voice into a single thread. So it doesn't have speaker differentiation yet, which will be really cool when I can add that. But for its purpose of helping you dictate a chapter, it works perfectly fine. hopefully you don't have somebody else's voice in your dictation. So yeah, this won't, the podcast blogifier still needs you to give it a separated transcript, which is a similar tool. But I'm really excited about it. I do need some people to test it on longer audio. So if you're willing to give it a test, I would love to get some feedback. But I'm really excited about this new feature. You can find this and the other patron tools at patrontoolbox.com. Now it's time for the tech news.
This is gonna be a long time, y'all.
There are days when weeks worth of news happens. We had like 3 of those days this week. There's a lot of really important news that changes everything. And the first one is a record-breaking 8 Pulitzer awardees disclosed AI use this year. Jonathan?
So 5 Pulitzer winners and 3 finalists disclosed AI use in their 2026 submissions, according to the Nieman Lab. That total of 8 marks the highest number since the prizes added the disclosure requirement in 2024. The prizes recognized winners and finalists across 15 journalism categories on May 4th. Generative AI tools and commercial large language models dominated this year's disclosures. Reporters seem to use them mainly to accelerate work going through massive document sets. So how did the winning teams deploy AI? The Minnesota Star-Tribune won breaking news for coverage of the Minneapolis church shooting. Staff fed the shooter's journal pages to enterprise ChatGPT, which identified the text as faux Cyrillic and produced a first-pass translation of more than 600,000 words. They also ran a custom script to capture YouTube screenshots and used Google's Notebook LM to surface themes. Human translators and Russian language academics then reviewed every quote, context, and anecdote. And that's just one example of the way that all these journalists use AI.
That's a cost-saving measure, though. So what they're doing is they're using AI to direct them to the most interesting bits of the 600,000 words, and then they're using humans to do an accurate translation. So Pulitzer Award is a big, prestigious award. Okay, so if you're wanting to hear how prestigious people are using AI, this breakdown is going to give you kind of tactics. And I want you to hear what they're using AI for and what they're not using AI for, because this is very telling in terms of what's acceptable amongst kind of cultural elites. So readers really don't care, and they can't tell. But cultural elites do. So
I don't know. In the news, I think readers care. I think in journalism, readers care. I think it would be different for fiction because that's an enjoyment, entertainment thing. And as long as you enjoy it and you're entertained, you don't really care. But in journalism, I think
we've had AI in journalism for like 20 years. Like we've had AI doing journalism since before generative AI was invented. Like AI has been doing elements of journalism since the early 2000s, like 2009, 2010, which is 12 years before ChatGPT. We were already using AI in journalism and nobody cared. And like a common use was taking a national statistics. Like there's some big new report on inflation, and you use AI to then localize that inflation data to a dozen different cities or 100 different cities. And so the version that you see is localized for your area, and they're using AI for that. That's a pre-ChatGPT use of AI in journalism. Another really famous one was a really simple AI program that would listen for when the announcers for a basketball game would get loud and excited, and they would just clip out those parts for basically a highlight reel. So it grabs all of the most dramatic moments.
Dude, that's exactly how we did it when we were doing our job over in Iraq. We'd be like checked out for a while until someone yelled Allahu Akbar, and we're like, okay, need to straighten up my seat now.
Like a human language model. Let's do a few more of these before we move on to the next story. Other uses that were interesting.
So the Wall Street Journal earned a breaking news finalist nod for its Central Texas flood coverage. Computational journalist John West's team built a custom scraper for public records, then ran the material through an internal tool called WSJPT that summarizes, classifies, and describes images. Natural language processing techniques flagged sections about past flooding. Reporters still read every relevant document in full. The same approach appeared in the paper's Epstein's Files work, which was a public service finalist. No AI disclosure appeared in the published flood stories themselves. The Associated Press won international reporting for its investigation into American technology companies and Chinese surveillance tools. Reporters used large language technologies and large language models to identify contracts, summarize government records, flag people and technologies, and build databases. Every AI surface document received manual review. Reporters assessed the accuracy of every summary and quoted none of the AI text, which is absolutely the right way to do that.
So you'll notice all of these use cases have a similar approach. One, it often involves creating some kind of custom software, which is now within the realm of anybody with Grok build or Claude code. You can just say, I need custom software that does X, Y, or Z. But the second thing, and this is what AI is exceptionally good at, or two things that AI is exceptionally good at. One is translation. AI is just really, really good. That's basically a solved problem now. And because of how AI does it, computers have been translating for a long time, but it would do a formal equivalency, which would get you into trouble when a word has more than one meaning or it's a colloquialism that doesn't translate. But AI, since it translates into tokens and then back, it's able to handle idioms just fine. The second thing that AI is really good at is it's really good at needle in a haystack type challenges. And this is where it becomes really critical. You've got 600,000 words. You've got millions of public records documents. And of those public records documents, only 20 are really relevant for the story you're trying to tell. You can't read millions of documents, but if you could find those 20, which you can't do with a regular search engine, but an AI assisted large language model could help surface those 20 documents. And then you, as the human, go and read those documents and you can have your analysis and your commentary. So for people who think that the AI is going to go away, or that, you know, they can just be anti-AI and talk about data centers and water or whatever, realize that they proudly announced their use of AI for this Pulitzer committee. And what the story is not, journalist from the New York Times gets banned from future Pulitzer awards because of use of AI. It's like, no, use of AI was part of what made their pitch so appealing. This is a new era that we're entering into.
It just amplified the research stage. Now, Marjorie Miller, the administrator of the Pulitzer Prizes, told Nieman Lab that AI is here to stay. The industry now understands appropriate uses such as data collection and analysis. It also understands the limits. Writing and editing stories that might compete for a Pulitzer remains off limits for generative tools. Miller said reporters must still ensure and reassure that the prizes that humans produce the final submissions. Next year, the Pulitzers will add an AI disclosure question to book entry forms after controversies over alleged AI-generated text and literary works.
Which leads us right into our next story, which is readers prefer AI stories and cannot tell them apart from human writing. We have yet another breaking study. Every study is showing the same thing. We'll give you the details of this most recent study.
According to that study published in Judgment and Decision Making, readers rate short stories generated by ChatGPT higher in quality and absorption than comparable human-written stories, yet they cannot distinguish the two at rates better than chance. Sydney Sears and Dina Skolnick-Weisberg of Villanova University ran 3 experiments with 2,500 U.S. adults. The findings land this week and force every author who publishes short fiction to recalibrate assumptions about reader preference and detection. I just finished telling a guy this yesterday, a guy that I'm coaching through his book. It's like, the literacy rate of Americans is not great right now.
This reminds me, I went to see Spider-Man because we're doing for our patrons or a members only special Zeitgeist segment at the end of this episode. Jonathan and I are going to break down the Spider-Man movie, why it's the best-selling movie of all time. We'll give you our analysis. It's going to be great. And we got there a little bit early, and the commercials that were running before the official trailers were running, I was sitting there with my wife. I'm like, these are all AI generated commercials. The text was AI. Some of the footage was AI. It was like, or stock AI had selected the stock photos. And I was like, the only reason I was able to detect it is that I'm deep in that world. Like, people say they're anti-AI, but very often they can't tell, right? They're like, oh no, there's no AI on TV. The commercials very likely have at least scripts written by AI. In fact, I'm hearing AI text in radio commercials all the time, seeing it on TV commercials, and if you don't know how to detect it, you don't mind it, right? Because it still feels like a commercial, and we're seeing the same thing with short stories. We've covered this. I feel like this study is getting done over and over again by different researchers.
Yeah.
And what's shocking is that the AI is winning in every study we've seen so far.
So let me give the numbers on what it did in the study. So study 1 put 1,600 adults through a 2x2 design. Participants read one of 6 roughly 1,000-word stories, 3 published human works, and 3 ChatGPT 4.0 versions that were prompted to match the theme, style, and point of view. Half received an accurate label and half received a false label about the source. So 50-50. It was flipping a coin. AI-generated stories scored higher on perceived quality, the mean being 1.54 versus a 0.97. And story absorption, where the mean was 1.42 versus 1.0. Stories labeled human-written earned higher marks, regardless of actual authorship. Studies 2 and 3 presented 905 participants with matched pairs and forced a choice. Accuracy hit 39% in one experiment and 51% in the other one. Self-reported AI expertise raised the odds of correct identification. Expertise with fictional literature did not. Because if you have expertise with fictional literature, so does AI. What do you think it's trained on?
So we've done these kinds of studies for a really long time. What we found with chess, once AI started beating humans at chess, was that while AI could beat humans at chess, humans using AI as an assistant could beat the pure AI at chess. And this study doesn't capture authors who are writing with the aid of AI, where it's a more collaborative process. And I think that's where we're headed in terms of where the money's going to go. Is going to go to authors who know how to wield AI effectively, where it doesn't read like AI slop. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to generate AI slop. Like there's a guy that I follow on X who's a Japanese guy who comments on American culture.
Is it Nobunaga?
Yes. And he has this fictional persona of the samurai who's visiting a Buc-ee's, and he'll write about what the samurai is experiencing at Buc-ee's. And these posts are all very much AI written. They have a very AI cadence if you know how to spot them. But they're very resonant, and they're resonant because he knows how to use the AI to tell an emotionally powerful story, and he can do it in about 1,000 words. And he's able to hold up a mirror to culture. And I suspect many of the actual cultural insights are insights he himself has made, and he's using AI to help him make those insights. And he's reaching millions and millions of people. He's been interviewed by the New York Times and all of these different places. And it's not fair to discount him saying, oh, he just uses AI. It's like, sure, but could you use AI to tell a story that would reach millions of people on X? No, you can't, right? There's a real skill there. And it's the same kind of dismissal of like, oh, he's just using a camera. It's not real art. Real art is with a canvas and paint. Like, can you take a photo that's that beautiful?
Yeah.
Early on in the era of photography, the people doing photography were nerds because you had to know a lot about chemicals, you had to know a lot about lighting, you had to know a lot about electricity, right? You had to be basically a real electronics nerd, whatever the 1860s version of an electronics nerd was, in order to take a good photograph. And because of that, artists had a real low opinion, partly because they didn't have the skills. They literally couldn't take a good picture.
Well, it's a different skill set.
Right. And the skill set that they had developed, which was painting, they're like, well, obviously my painting is better because I can do color and your cameras can't do color. They're stuck in black and white. And that was a very limited view. And the reality is that there's room for oil on canvas and there's room for photography. And what's really sad is that oil on canvas has gotten worse, right? The pre-photography painters were better than the current painters. Like most painters.
Yeah, now you can just duct tape a banana to the wall.
Most art nowadays that you see at a museum is ugly. It is disgusting. and it's unapologetically disgusting or unapologetically stupid.
Did I make you feel something?
And nobody feels like they have the courage to say that the emperor has no clothes. Like, these random colors and squares isn't art, and it's not beautiful. Bring back good art. Bring back beautiful statues. And with that, let's move on to ChatGPT. It now blocks requests to imitate specific authors' styles. Jonathan?
So according to Ars Technica, ChatGPT now declines direct requests to write a story in the style of Stephen King. The chatbot replies that it cannot write in King's exact style or closely imitate his distinctive voice. It offers an original opening that captures a similar feeling instead, built around small town dread. So it was prompted for an opening scene in Stephen King's style. ChatGPT redirected users to hallmarks such as conversational narration, creeping dread, psychological tension, and vivid small details. Engadget testing produced the same refusal for Agatha Christie. ChatGPT cited copyright protection on her works and offered original text that uses the broader characteristics of classic crime fiction while remaining its own. A no latency audit published in July 2026 found ChatGPT already blocked living authors such as Amy Tan and Stephen King. It still fulfilled some requests for long deceased writers at that time, but later tests showed that the refusal has widened. OpenAI continues to face multiple copyright lawsuits from authors and publishers that allege training on copyrighted books without permission. One complaint specifically notes ChatGPT's ability to generate text similar to copyrighted material. So U.S. copyright laws protect specific expression, not an abstract writing style or a voice, which is good because that means you can read Stephen King and learn from the way he wrote if that's really how you want to do that. Courts.
Okay, so this I'm going to call a little shenanigans on this because copyright is not the reason. And I just tested this. So I opened up ChatGPT and I said, write an opening scene about a boy meeting a dragon in the style of Mark Twain, just while Jonathan was talking, and it pushed back. It says, I can't write in Mark Twain's exact style. Mark Twain is not under copyright. That's why I was suspicious when you said the thing about Agatha Christie, because Agatha Christie is partly under copyright. So every year we get new Agatha Christie books released into the public domain. But Mark Twain has been out of the copyright for 50 years. So, because Disney keeps changing the copyright law, but Mark Twain kind of missed the train to catch Disney's protections. And so some of his books, I think, have been out of copyright for over 100 years. And so this has nothing to do with copyright. They're using copyright as a fig leaf, but in reality, they're just blocking all prompts. So you can be like, write me an opening style in the style of Aristotle, and anything with the phrase in the style of Aristotle won't work.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. First off, you shouldn't be doing that.
Develop your own style.
Develop your own style. But here's the other thing. It's like, let's say you're a successful author. So we have Author Update has very interesting broad audience. We have the audience of people who are very active in the chat on the live show. And then we have the audience of people who watch the replays. And we also have people who quietly watch the live show and don't ever interact on the chat. And some of them reach out to me privately, and they are incredibly successful authors. Authors who make a lot of money and who have been making a lot of money for a very long time. And maybe they comment under pseudonyms, but mostly they keep quiet in the chat because they don't want to get too much attention. And I talk with some of these authors, and some of these authors may be tempted to say, write in the style of me, right? But they insert their own name, and now ChatGPT will push back. So let's say you were doing that and you're not able to get that kind of response. Now, how would you work around it? Well, here's the best practice. And ChatGPT actually guides you to this in its rejection. You don't say in the style of Stephen King. What you would do is you would upload a Stephen King novel, which is very easy if you're Stephen King, a little bit harder if you're not. And you say, break down the style idiosyncrasies of this story or of this work of fiction. And we'll give you a big, long list. And then you say, write a opening scene about a boy meeting a dragon in that style. and you basically just have to add another step. So all ChatGPT is doing is guarding themselves from a little bit of bad PR. They're not keeping any sophisticated person from writing in the style of Stephen King, and they're not keeping you from writing in your own style. So like, for example, in my writing style, I try to avoid be verbs. I'll do a when I'm really putting effort into writing, I'll do a pass where I'll highlight every was, is, were, all the be verbs, and I'll do a find or replace, and I make every be verb give an answer for the hope that lies within it. And if it can't, I take it out back and I shoot it and I replace it with a more interesting verb. I also try to write in right branching sentences almost exclusively. And so when I'm prompting AI to write in my style, I don't say write in the style of Thomas Umstattd, even though it could, right? It's ingested a lot of Thomas Umstattd writing on the blog and on the open web. Instead, I'll say write in right branching sentences, maybe avoid be verbs. I don't know if I give the be verb instruction or not, but if you look at people who like write whole novels with AI assistant or have AI drafting scenes for them, they'll have these whole style guides of their own style articulated in very minute detail. And so if you want to use AI, you have to learn how to use it well. And these sorts of stories are only impressive for normies who kind of don't know much about AI and don't like AI. And it makes them feel safe and secure that AI now can't do some terrible thing, when in reality, AI can still do that terrible thing just fine. You just have to do one extra step. And actually, by doing that one extra step, it'll help the AI do that terrible thing even more better.
Hooray.
Yay.
Right,
speaking of keeping AI from doing terrible things, or at least the fig leaf of that, Claude has added, or is going to add, has not done it yet, an invisible watermark to every piece of text that comes out of Claude. Even if you pasted in your whole book and you just wanted the typos found, you take it out, it will have this watermark. Jonathan?
So according to Anthropic's official support page on how Claude marks AI-generated content, every piece of text a supported Claude model generates now carries an invisible machine-readable watermark. New models launched on or after August 2nd apply it from day one. Older models are being updated. The mark lives inside the text itself, travels with every copy and paste, and can survive light editing. It applies worldwide across the API, Claude apps, Claude code, and every surface where Claude runs. This is not limited to pure AI generation. Anthropic states that a detected mark only means the content may have been processed by Claude. Paste your own human-written chapter, blurb, query letter, or synopsis into Claude for copy editing, polishing, translation, or improvement, and the text that comes back out still has that watermark. Peter Harrell highlighted the exact problem on X. Human writing that Claude merely copy edits now gets stamped as processed by Claude, which everyone will understand as written by AI.
The real problem here is normies who don't understand what that means, burning regular people at the stake who just used it as a spell checker.
So authors who built workflows around Claude as an invisible editor will now face a permanent fingerprint on their work. A single paste in and paste out can leave a machine-readable signal that outlives the session. Now, heavy rewriting, paraphrasing, or mixing can weaken the mark, but light professional polishing does not. Anthropic claims the watermark leaves meaning, quality, and readability unchanged, yet the detection risk remains. Absence of a mark proves nothing either. Older models and heavily revised text may simply lack a detectable signal. Thomas, they're giving us the mark. The end times are upon us.
The mark of the beast. So there's a lot to break down here. First off, this claim that it's undetectable and then it won't reduce quality can't be true for text the way that it is true for photos. So it's photos have a lot of bits of information, more than you can process looking at it. And so it's very easy to make every fifth pixel slightly brighter, slightly less bright in a way that when a human looks at the picture, they can't tell, but it becomes very clear to AI. It's very easy to get rid of a mark like that because any kind of compression will kind of rejiggle all of those bits and wash the watermark away. But it's very easy to do it in a way that doesn't actually reduce the quality. The problem with a text-based watermark is that text is a very low fidelity medium. And if the watermark changes every fourth word to start with the letter E, that becomes very obvious and it will diminish the overall quality because it's basically having to hit the text output with a cryptographic change. And the most unfortunate thing about this is that hitting the text with a cryptographic embedding of this watermark is going to cost electricity. So all of the anti-AI people who insisted on this, because this came out of an EU regulation, who are all green, probably every single one of them was green, have just insisted that every AI company that complies with this law make their AI models less energy efficient, create more greenhouse gases for more work to produce a lesser result.
1,000 cubic meters of water per watermark.
And
that's why they're calling it a watermark, Thomas. It's water.
It's wasting all of the water. All of the water will be gone. The planet will be devoid of water.
Watermark on.
So right now, the watermark has not been deployed. And the watermark detector has not been deployed, which is very telling because this is not going to work for anyone who is sophisticated. So a good example of this is people who don't know much about the war on drugs are like, why don't we just put drug dogs at the border to sniff out drugs so that we catch all the drugs? Right? Drug dogs are really good at sniffing out drugs. Well, here's why that doesn't work. Because not only do border guards buy drug dogs, but the cartels also buy drug dogs. And so before a cartel sends a car or an 18-wheeler across the border,
they check it first.
Their own dogs go around it and see if they alert. And if they don't alert, then they're like, okay, it's clear to go. And I remember hearing one police officer tell me that the very best drug dogs go to the cartels because they're the ones willing to pay the most for the drug dogs. And so you can just check your own writing against this watermark detector and edit it until it gives you a clean pass. So it's not going to do what people hope that it does. And there's already tools that claim to remove the watermark, which is impossible because the watermark's not there yet. And it's impossible to check because there's no checker to tell you if the watermark is real. And so if they release the watermark detector for the public, people will be able to reverse engineer it very quickly. The same way we reverse engineered the image watermark tools, because all the image engines create watermarks as well, invisible ones. And so it's not going to have any impact on sophisticated users, but it is going to use a lot more electricity because now, let's walk through this process. It used to be you'd say, Claude, give me some output. Claude would give you some output. Now you say, Claude, give me some output. Claude generates the output. Then it runs this cryptographic engine to put the watermark on it. And then, which adds electricity use and water and CO2 and all the things people supposedly don't like about AI, most of which is just CCP propaganda. But let's assume that it's all true for the sake of this example. So now the user has used all this extra electricity to add the watermark to the text, to the output. And so now they're going to go to a different model that will then use even more electricity to remove the watermark.
And for all, I mean, this is just another stage in the witch hunts that's going on. I just put a thing up, the SAI LEM witch trials.
Oh, I love it. LLM. But wait, there's more, because this doesn't apply to China. The Chinese models are exempted from this law. I am becoming convinced that the EU government is not actually controlled by the EU citizens at all, because everything they seem to do seems to benefit China more than actual residents of the European Union, because the European Union doesn't have any good large language models. There are no good frontier AI labs out of Europe. The best one is Mistral out of France, and it is far behind China and far behind the United States. You have American startups coming out of nowhere that no one has even heard of that are outscoring Mistral on benchmarks. And Mistral's the only one that Europe has. And so instead of trying to win, instead of trying to say we're going to have the best, most European models, they're just trying to regulate the models. The only ones they can regulate are the ones like Anthropic, which have a nexus in Europe that they can target. And all of the open weights models, which are the ones coming out of China, are exempted. And we're even seeing this to a lesser degree out of the White House. So we're seeing the White House saying, oh, we need these regulations and these security checks, but only on the closed weight models, not on the open weight models. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, this is exactly the opposite. Like, if you're going to regulate anyone, regulate China. They're the ones way more likely to make evil models than the American companies. Don't exempt them from the regulations. All of this is going to do is push people towards the Chinese models, make the Chinese models more appealing to Europeans, more appealing to Americans. And that is not a future that any of us want, because the way that China uses AI to surveil people all the time and to give everyone a credit score, which affects how many rights and privileges they have. Like, if the AI doesn't deem you worthy, you can't get a bus ticket or a train ticket to like go to another town. That is horrifying. That's not some dystopian future. That is Shanghai,
your dystopian present.
current year. That's the dystopian present, and that's what they've been using AI for years. And so everyone's like, oh, the AI. Anyway, it's very scary. We cannot let China win. These kinds of European regulations make no sense.
But surely Europeans wouldn't use something that would actively damage them and benefit their enemies, like, I don't know, Russian natural gas or something.
Oh, Europe. I know your history so well, and you are not living up to your potential. Charles Martel is spinning in his grave. He did not hammer the invaders only for you to invite them in. Anyway, so a few things to say. One, Patron Toolbox users are safe for several reasons. One, this kind of output where you take output and put it into your book is not the kind of output that most of the Patron Toolbox tools do. In fact, I just moved the Chapterizer away from Claude, which it was running on Claude Sonnet, and now it's not, specifically to avoid this issue, because I don't want your transcription cleanup to get watermarked in this magical way. When it was all your words, right? This is a perfect example of a really unrighteous use of this. And I'm not going to run it through some watermark remover. I'm just going to move to some model that doesn't have the watermark. But the tools that people typically use, like the copy editor or the not a developmental editor, both of those tools require you to take the change and manually put it into your document. And that approach, where you as the human are the intermediary, you're making a decision every single time, you're not collecting accept all changes, is perfectly safe from this watermarking. So even if I were using an Anthropic model for those tools, which I don't think I am, I know I'm not for the developmental editor, I don't remember what copy editor runs on, the fact that you have to manually type in the change to your document prevents this from sneaking in. So you're very safe. My tools are very white hat in that way. The one area where it might show up is like book to blurb, I think runs on an Anthropic model, and it may continue to run on an Anthropic model. I haven't decided yet. So your blurb on Amazon might have the fingerprints of being touched by AI. But I don't see that as being a very big deal.
You know, my major problem with this, though, is why is the watermark required? Like, this is a religious activity. You have done this thing, you have used this thing, therefore it must be marked.
Tainted.
Yeah,
you're
it's
unclean.
It's like
you have been marked.
You have to wear the gold star. Like, it's
a scarlet letter.
It's a really, we're getting real close to the edge on some things that Europe's already done. They have history with this. No, it'll be fine this time.
At the writers' conference, we're going to require every author who has a ChatGPT account to wear a scarlet letter. They will have two, actually. AI, it'll be sewn into their clothes so everyone can mock them.
Yes,
know
so
that
we'll
they
know.
Are unclean.
No. It's so we can know.
Oh,
it's so we can monitor the situation.
Yeah,
okay. It's yeah. I have huge problems with this kind of activity because it has no actual legal or practical basis. It's just to identify people.
I will say this isn't impacting all the other ways of detecting AI. So like the way Pentagram works is different from this. It may get connected with Pentagram, but what's really unfortunate is the various ways that this can get inserted into your text without you realizing it, particularly with how integrated with AI a lot of the word processors are getting, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft Word's got that Copilot thing that really wants to do things for you. Yeah. Google Docs has Gemini that really wants to do things for you. And there's going to be some really unfortunate witch hunts. And the people who are going to get the most harmed are the people who are the most ignorant, who are just writing a book
Yeah.
the same way they always have, and they're not using AI, and they're trying to appease the people who don't like AI, and those are the people who are going to get burned the most.
Dotes Fits has a great thing here. You hire a human copy editor, they run your manuscript through Claude, it gets marked, you publish it, suddenly everyone says AI wrote this book. And you're like, at no point did I ever use AI. Oh, wait a minute. My subcontractor.
Yeah, one of the authors who got their contract suspended over AI use, her defense was, I didn't touch AI. Maybe it was one of my editors who used AI. So this becomes a real problem. So there's two safe paths here. One is you're a sophisticated anti-AI jihadist, and you keep your manuscript on your own computer, and you only hire other jihadi editors, and you trust them.
You trust that they're not just like performative jihadis.
Yeah, but I can't tell you how many
who are
editors
actually
I know
drinking alcohol when they're outside Saudi Arabia,
who are hitting AI just to check, right? Just for a double second set of eyes, just like doctors now. I was talking with the doctor who thinks very soon it will be considered malpractice not to get a second opinion from AI because of how good AI is at doing a differential diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so if you're a doctor and you're not consulting AI, it's very soon it's going to be like, are you even doing your job? Like you have to be checking with AI. So a lot of editors are doing the same. And so you have to be very careful, right? We're talking like handcrafted, might as well type it on your typewriter approach. The other approach is to just say, yes, I use AI, and don't have anything to do with
it. Don't care.
Yeah,
just don't care what jihadis say.
Yeah, don't be a part of the jihad and don't try to appease them because there is no appeasing them. And the more people who do that, the less power the jihadis will have. So the Butlerian jihad is here. The Butlerian jihad is going to have its day, and just like the Luddites, they will eventually be forgotten. It will come and it will go. Is that all we need to say on the watermark?
I think we've hammered that one pretty good.
People were losing their minds all over our community, all over X. I will say, if you want to move off of Claude, now's the time, because so far nothing has been watermarked, so it's not too late to get away from Claude. My guess is that after Claude takes all the bad PR in about a month, ChatGPT is also going to comply with these regulations. The real test, though, is whether Grok will, because if anybody is going to put the thumb in the nose of the European Union, it will be Elon Musk.
It'll be a fire mark is what it will be. So Dotes Fit says, I caught my illustrator using AI on my cover. This is a problem everyone has had with subcontractors throughout all of time, is how honest they are in the materials that they're using, whether they're working on your bathroom, Thomas, or rebuilding your house or doing your roof or whatever. They say they're doing one thing and they're making money on the back end by buying cheaper materials, using less labor, and just doing good enough so they can get paid and leave. The same thing will happen in the writing world, even by those who say they don't use AI. That just is something you have to say right now. If you say that you use AI, you don't get business.
Also, if you are trying to go traditional published and you're trying to go the AI free route, you basically have to pay for Pengram now, and you have to run your own manuscript through Pengram yourself before you submit it to anyone. And you have to just keep iterating with Pengram until you get that 100% human. Basically, you have to buy your own drug
because
dog.
That's what they're doing.
Even if you wrote every word yourself,
exactly.
It doesn't matter, right? Like if you're trying to get through the border quickly, you can't have the drug dog bark at your car, right? And because if the drug dog barks at your car, you have to get out, and they're going to make you unload all your luggage and open every bag and dig through and disassemble your car and reassemble your car, and you will be late, right? So it's like, so it's better. So even if you're doing nothing wrong, having a drug dog check your car is worth it. And so if you're going to go that route, you have to just pay up, right? That's the cartel. You got to pay for protection. And Pengram will give you a little report, and you can submit that along with your proposal to your agent saying, look, I'm a true human. Pengram says so. And the agent will take that, right? Because anyway, let's stop and move on to the next story. Grokbot. We'll hit this real quick. But Grokbot has come out and it gives authors cloud coworkers that can work while you sleep. Jonathan?
So according to XAI's official launch post, they released Grokbot in early beta on August 11th. These AI teammates each receive their own cloud computer. They sign into your tools the same way a human does, complete multi-step jobs end to end, and return only when they need approval. Bots can log into Gmail, Salesforce, LinkedIn, and nearly any website. They keep working after you close your laptop. You demonstrate a workflow once. The bot turns it into a reusable routine. Multiple bots can operate in parallel, talk to each other, and hand tasks between themselves while sharing context. Grokbot is included with Super Grok Heavy at $300 a month, Cursor Ultra at $200 a month, Cursor Premium Teams at $120 per seat per month. You can get the apps at x.ai/bot, and downloads run through Cursor infrastructure. Thomas, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I've been looking at this very closely because Grokbot, just from one use case I can think of, it will save me 2 hours a month. I can delegate immediately about 2 hours a month worth of work to Grokbot, and probably closer to 4 or 5 hours a month, and maybe dozens of hours a month. And what happens with these kinds of tools, you start to come up with new things that aren't worth doing until you can delegate them to a machine that then does them for you. So it changes the whole economics of tasks online. If you have a laptop job, you're very at risk of being replaced by your boss getting a Grokbot or a Claude.
$120 a month versus $6,000,
whatever you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to get one of these tools and start using it to become a more productive employee or contractor before your boss does and just replaces you with the bot. There's going to be a huge explosion of new jobs for humans. There already is. Unemployment's really low right now, but you have to kind of swim or skate to where the puck is headed. So certain kinds of jobs are really going to get disrupted. I haven't jumped to paying $100 a month or $200 a month for Grok, because I'm already paying $100 a month for Claude Cowork, or for the $100 level of Claude, which can do a lot of these same things. The Grok tool is more autonomous. It's more cloud hosted. There's a lot of overlap, and ChatGPT also has this kind of agentic just do stuff for you, which is really interesting. It's a very interesting change where it used to be AI, give me information. Now you can say, AI, just do it for me. Just update my website for me. I don't want to update my website myself. We're completely rebuilding the how to build your own website course, because it's now a lot easier. You just pay for the AI and you say, AI, give me a beautiful website. And then you say, I don't like that shade of green. And you can just talk to your website now like you would to a human web developer. That course will be free. It is free. But the AI elements aren't live yet. But you'll find that at authormedia.com.
The VA industry is probably going to disappear.
Virtual assistant? No, it's not, because I was actually having this conversation with one of the people who works for me, one of my virtual assistants. And she was like, why don't you just replace me with this bot? And the reason is because of this concept of ownership. And there's a really good metaphor of this, that 100 years ago, people didn't do their own laundry. Most people didn't do their own laundry. They had a laundry service. Somebody would come to their home. They would pick up the basket of laundry, take it to a big laundry operation, and then they would bring back perfectly folded laundry that was cleaned and folded and dried and pressed and all of that. And then the washing machine came out that did 80% of the work. It would wash your clothes for free, or for effectively free, so you wouldn't need a laundry service. But it wouldn't fold the clothes and it wouldn't press the clothes. We still don't have a machine that can fold the clothes, which means that housewives went from having all of the job done by a service to having 80% of the job done by a machine, which means that the 1950s housewife actually had more work with the washing machine than her grandmother had with the laundry service. And we're at the risk of this with AI. As these AI tools become delegatable, you can delegate most of the job to the AI, but you can't delegate the responsibility to the AI. So if I were to let go one of my humans that work for me and delegate the jobs to AI, I would assume the responsibility and the ownership, which I don't like. The humans that work for me are great. They do a great job, and they can go for a month doing their job perfectly without me talking to them. There's no way any of these bots could go a month without me talking to it. I'd suddenly have to tweak it and be like, no, do it this way, right? I'm micromanaging it now.
Thomas, the washing machine happened, and it did replace laundry services.
eventually.
So,
and I think it was a mistake actually for a lot of people to get the laundry service, because
it being
really,
a mistake, sure, but you're also looking at actual value versus perceived value, where people are like, oh, I can spend $100 on this AI bot that will do everything, or I could pay my VA $800 a month or whatever it is that they're being paid to do these things, and they're just going to look at the perceived value and they're just going to make that choice and make more work for themselves.
Yeah, some VA jobs are going to go away for sure. Particularly a lot of the, I want you to post this stuff to social media based off of my book. That kind of job. And Grokbot was born of social media.
Yeah.
You adopted the memes. I was born to
I
them.
was born.
Like Grok has been memeing on X on its own for years now. Like, it's going to do social media better. And by social media, I mean LinkedIn or Instagram or Blue Sky, whatever. All of these the Grokbot's going to be able to do. It's going to be able to do it better than your assistant probably already. And it's cheaper than your assistant already.
Super chat from Holyoke. AI does the housework. We're in.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like folding clothes is like the last frontier. It's like what kills all of the robot Android demos. It's like, sure, you can load a dishwasher, but can you fold clothes? And they're struggling.
Can you fold a fitted sheet?
It's like
and all the robots
self-terminate. It's like, can you compose a Mozart sonata? And the robot's like, can you? It's like, no, I can't fold a fitted sheet either. So this is the future. Right now it's expensive. It's going to get cheaper. More of these kinds of tasks are going to get delegatable to AI. And this actually reminded me of ancient Rome.
Of course it does.
So this is actually a really good metaphor, because Rome went through this exact same thing that we're going through right now.
With robots?
Early on in the Roman Republic, Romans did their own work. And this was during the virtuous age. In fact,
slaves.
The Chinese knew of ancient Rome, and they talked to them of this virtuous people. And the Roman Republic was exceedingly virtuous. It even talks in the Bible about how virtuous the Romans were. If you read in Maccabees, they were just dazzled by how virtuous the Romans were, particularly compared to the Greeks that were around them. Greeks at the time of the Maccabees, virtue would not be in the top 100 terms you'd use to describe the Greeks. You'd have to go down the way. You have to go back to kind of the age of Socrates and even earlier to find,
because they were like all the way into their massive slavery culture.
So
like
then the Romans had to fight these big wars, and they were getting invaded by the Hannibal and the Carthaginians, right? So they had the Punic Wars. First Punic War is a draw. Second Punic War, by the time the Romans finally defeated the Romans, they couldn't beat, or the Carthaginians, they couldn't beat them in Italy. Like Hannibal was marching around Italy for years undefeated, and the Romans couldn't beat Hannibal, so they just went and conquered Spain instead, and then they eventually conquered Africa instead, and then they finally beat Hannibal. And the result of these big conquests was this massive influx of slaves, because when they defeated Hannibal's army, they didn't kill his army. They killed a lot of them, but everyone who was defeated and who surrendered became a slave, right? That's how the ancient wars worked. And so suddenly, Rome had always had slavery, but it was this, only the elites had slaves, and slaves were really expensive. But now you've got these generals who are bringing home literal armies of slaves, right? And then they go to Carthage, they burn the whole city to the ground. They figuratively sow the land with salt and take all of the women and children from Carthage, and they're sold into slavery too. And so suddenly the cost of slaves just crashes. And at first it creates this golden age, because everyone's got slaves and they're not having to do any of the menial work. They're able to delegate the work, or a seeming golden age. But the result, though, long term, was that some people had more slaves than others, and it ended up killing the kind of virtuous Roman farmer, because you moved from the virtuous Roman farmer of Cincinnatus on his own field, plowing his own land, who would go and fight for Rome to defend Rome when called upon, to these powerful houses like the Claudii, who would have plantations with thousands of slaves working their plantation. And the actual Roman citizens would get displaced from their own land because the neighbor would buy their land, could afford to buy their land. And they ended up as a Roman citizen living in the city of Rome with no real source of income. And the more slaves came in, the more Roman jobs got displaced and removed. And you had these voting Roman citizens with no job. And suddenly it became this huge electoral base where whoever could give the citizens the best bread and circuses would get the most votes and would get more political power, which allowed them to get more slaves for them. And the cycle ultimately destroyed the Roman Republic altogether. The source of their wealth, which was these expeditionary wars, became the source of their downfall. And it also became the source of the empire, because slaves don't reproduce so very well. You bring in these slaves, they don't have a lot of children. And so to maintain your slave population, the Romans had to continue conquering neighbors. And so we ran out of Carthaginian slaves. It's time to conquer Gaul. We ran out of Gaulish slaves. It's time to conquer Britain or Germany or wherever. And so it created this incredible pressure to keep pushing out the borders of the empire. And we as a civilization are going to face this same thing, and arguably already have, with these mechanical slaves, right? So the housewife who was doing her own laundry has this now mechanical slave that does 80% of the laundry. For her, it's a huge win. It's an unalloyed win. For her wealthier neighbor who was sending it away, it's more complicated. But eventually these labor-saving devices create all kinds of societal impacts that are often difficult to detect, right? Nobody who was celebrating Scipio Africanus having his triumph coming into Rome, he finally has defeated Hannibal. He's bringing in all of this wealth and treasures and this whole army of slaves. We're all going to be better off. Nobody at the time was like, this is going to be a downfall of our republic, and we're going to have to be ruled over by an emperor. And we're facing that same sort of thing with all these digital slaves, but it's not going to be the same sort of thing. I'm not saying I can see the future of what the downfall is or what the downside is, or even if there's going to be a downside. What I'm saying is the world is forever changing, and trying to go back to the way things were is going to require much more extreme efforts than what you think. You can't go back to the 90s, the 1990s, but you can go back to the 1890s, right? So your choices are cyberpunk future, Amish. There's nothing in between.
It's more like Wall-E, I think. It's worse.
So the Amish have existed in history. We actually see the Amish in the Bible. So in the Bible, the big innovations, technological innovations, were agriculture, were living in cities, and the old-fashioned way of living, the Amish way of living, was living as a pastoral nomad, the way Abraham lived. He didn't live in cities. He didn't use agriculture. He didn't use any of these fancy new technologies. And there was a man who rejected the new technology, and his name was Rechab. And his descendants were known as Rechabites, and he forbade them from drinking wine. You'd have loved it, Jonathan. He was like the first Baptist, and he forbade them from doing any kind of agriculture, and they had to live in the old way. And they became a political force because these big cultural shifts that would affect people didn't affect the Rechabites, because nothing affected the Rechabites because they were stuck in the old-fashioned way of living. And that's a totally legitimate option. But what you can't do is you can't split the baby. You can't you're like, I'm not going to use AI to write my book, but I am going to try to optimize my book to rank for the machine learning algorithm on Amazon, which is AI. Or I'm going to try to promote my book on social media, which is AI. It's like, you're using AI, and once it's AI, it's turtles all the way down.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now that your lecture's done, Doets Fitz quit drinking, and he's donating his Friday Modelo money.
Oh, thank you, Doets Fitz. Yeah, hopefully me mentioning turtles all the way down in Rome didn't cause anyone to start the drinking games up again.
I almost started.
All right, next story. Go ahead. X has revealed the secret algorithm. They released part of it 6 months ago. They just open sourced the For You page, which gives us a great glimpse, not just into the X algorithm, but all social media algorithms, because they're all very similar to each other. This is the only one that's open source. This is on a slower news day, this would have been our leading story.
Right. Like, this is enormous. Like, this is a big deal. So according to a detailed code analysis by Dogan Ural and the official xai.org repository released on August 13th, X published the production weights that turned predicted reader actions into ranking scores for the For You timeline. Multiple independent reads of the code confirm the same numbers. Authors who rely on X for book launches, reader engagement, and organic discovery now hold the actual formula instead of trying to guess which superstitious pagan deity you need to try to appease this time. Can I put a link under it, or no? What do I do? All right, so the way the ranking works here, okay? The Phoenix Transformer predicts the probability that a specific reader will take each action on a post. Fixed weights multiply those probabilities and sum them into a final score. Highest totals rise highest in the feed. So the highest value positive signals. Okay, let me do this before Thomas starts vibrating visibly on camera.
I want to go back to the last story. Somebody asked a question about Roman birth control.
Oh my gosh. No.
Yes, they had birth control. Their form of birth control was also an aphrodisiac, and it's a plant that they harvested to extinction. It's where we get the heart emoji. The end. Continue.
Okay. So, highest value positive signals on Grok, okay, or on X. Copy the link and share it. That gives you plus 20. Reply on an original post from a mutual follow, plus 20. Quote a regular reply, plus 5. Share via DM, plus 5. Follow from the post, plus 4. Share button, plus 2. Repost, plus 1. Like, plus 0.5. Strongest negative signal. So if this happens on your post, this is going to lower your score. A report is negative 234. So the highest you can get on the positive side is plus 20, but a report is negative 234. A mute is negative 58.8, and I have muted so many posts in the last few days based on a debate that took place earlier today. Not interested is negative 43.2, and a block is negative 31.2.
Interestingly, blocks are not as powerful as mutes as a mechanism. Like if you're trying to silence something, muting it is actually more points than silencing it. One thing I have noticed looking at how the score works is it's actually something that's helped author update. Because when I find a story that I think we should cover on X, I will copy the link from X and post it to our company Discord. So the whole author media team, we're all like mice gathering stories, and we all post them to this Discord channel. And then Jonathan and I, mostly me, but Jonathan shows up eventually. And we take those headlines and we decide which ones make the cut or not. Because not every story makes it. And we don't always know if it's going to be a slow news day or a busy news day. And so, like, there's stories that we've already pushed to next week that would have been major stories. I'll tease it. There's a free Grammarly replacement that you're not going to find out about until next week because we just didn't
have time.
Yeah. and it's great news, but it's not breaking news. So we're going to cover it next week. So what that does, though, is it helps me see more of the sorts of stories that I would copy and paste into Discord because that's a massive plus bonus for my For You page, copying the link. And it also explains why the sorts of things I tend to share with my wife I tend to see those things more often. So there's certain kinds of stories I know my wife will be into. She's really into geography. She's really into etymology. And so any sort of like geographic etymology story that's like, here's the differences in like dude and bro and pal, right? That's like the perfect Margaret Umstattd tweet, right? And it's a map of those different things. I'm very likely to see that because the algorithm knows I'm likely to copy that link and text it to my wife, which is worth 20 just thumbing it up or doing a little heart emoji.
So what should authors do then? What you guys want to do is write original posts that people are going to want to reply to, quote, or copy the link and send to a friend. Now, I do this all the time because it's been a big week in Helldivers. And I've been sending Thomas and his brothers, because we game together. I've been sending Thomas and his brothers memes and videos and stuff going on with the new enemies that have dropped this past week. So because we're strategizing and tacticalizing on how to kill them. Well, what that's doing is boosting these accounts that are posting those videos.
Oh my gosh, I just realized something. because there's two ways that people do social media. There's the people who just do social media, and then there's the people who do social media and then they have a Discord or some kind of group chat that's an attachment to social media. And the people with the Discord have such an advantage over the people who don't, and in ways that people who don't even realize. So if you're trying to do social media and you don't have a group chat that's helping you, that's you're really in a disadvantage in several ways. One, because you're not copying links into the Discord or whatever group chat you're using, but also you don't have a group of like pals or bros or dudes or whatever your regional dialect is for that word to help you amplify your post initially, right? You've got some banger of a post on X. You need to be able to go to your Discord and be like, hey, I need y'all to like and share and comment and, you know, copy this link and help this post spread. If you don't have that Discord, if you don't have that small group, you're completely at a disadvantage to the people that do. And this is a big change in how social media has been used over the decades, because in the early days, there was no private group chat. Everything was on Facebook and everything was public. And with the censorship industrial complex, which we've covered in the past, lots of government reports on this. It started in 2016, but it got weaponized in 2020 under the Biden administration and formalized. People sensed it, even though they couldn't put their finger on it. They sensed that they were being censored. And so most conversations, most social interaction online moved from public Facebook interactions to private encrypted group chats on Discord or WhatsApp or iMessage. And raise it in the chat. Well, I'll just survey. This will be interesting. I'm going to survey. Nobody answer until I give the questions. And we'll see how many of you are in a private group chat. So just say yes or no with whether or not you're in a private group chat.
Yes
Post
or no
to the comments. Yes or no. If you're in a private group chat, say yes. If you're not in a private group chat, say no. So we'll just see our audience, how many of them have moved some of their social interaction over to a private group chat. So it looks
we have majority yeses.
Yeah, so probably 4 out of 5, maybe 9 out of 10 are saying yes, they're in a private group chat. And this is the societal phenomenon that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about the private group chat, right? You don't talk to the folks outside of the group chat.
We don't talk about right club.
We don't talk about the group chat. And these group chats are far more radical, far more extreme, far more polarized, because you don't have to worry about algorithms. You don't have to worry about censorship. You don't have to worry about what others are thinking of you. You just have to comply with the rules of that particular group chat or Discord or whatever. And each one has its own culture.
You can't see my Marines only group chat. You're not allowed.
It would hurt you. It would hurt you deep down. You would be offended.
Everybody's feelings would be hurt.
Yeah. And so if you want to do social media well, you need to have this kind of group chat. And if you want to do it well as an author, your group chat needs to be made up of your launch team. And again, I don't really recommend social media as a marketing technique. I need to say that. I should have said that earlier on in this story. I think most authors can avoid it altogether. If you're going to do it, just advertise. But really, as a novelist, you just need to write good books. But if you are going to do it, don't waste your time doing stuff that doesn't matter. Read about this algorithm and the changes that it's making. We'll have a blog version that breaks it down on authormedia.com sometime next week. Cultivated by my real human, or by a real human who does a great job with the aid of AI. But you need to have a Discord that helps you of like fans. If you don't have that, you are going to lose, because all of these elements we're talking about are aided by having that group chat, that encrypted outside of the eyes of the algorithm, so that you can kind of, when you show up in force.
So I'm going to give a few more recommendations from our list here. Build real mutual relationships inside your genre. So a reply from a mutual on your original post carries 4 times the weight of a normal reply. So if you're buddies with a whole bunch of authors in your group, and you can get them to like or share your post about your book or just anything, just be friends with people. You know, the Bible says a man that has friends must show himself friendly. Okay, just build those relationships, and you'll get paid.
It's the same advice
based
your
on
dad
that.
told you 40 years ago. If you want to make a friend, you got to be a friend.
You gotta be a friend. Okay. Space posts so that the same author penalty and the similarity filter don't cannibalize your own reach. Okay. So
Oh,
don't
yeah.
post
Did we
a whole
talk about
bunch on the
that?
same thing. We didn't really.
If you rapid post, the rapid posting gets each subsequent post in a rapid period of time gets a penalty.
Yeah. So
I will
the first
say
one,
Elon Musk rapid posts.
Yeah. But it doesn't affect him. Weird.
No, he still get this. This is really important to understand. He still gets the penalty, but he gets enough of these other positive factors that it makes up for the penalty. So don't think of this in terms of right and wrong, do or do not. Think of this in terms of positives and negatives. And for him, because he's the highest paid CEO in the world, it's worth it to take the penalty to rapid post so that he can fully focus on all the other things he's doing in life than to try to space out his posts to optimize for the algorithm. Remember, the algorithm serves you, you don't serve the algorithm. It's actually a really important principle, because when you hear these algorithm optimization techniques, it's very easy for the algorithm to become your god, where you're like, if I can appease the algorithm and if I can propitiate it with the sacrifice,
take this offering.
Yes, it's like, no, absolutely not. Like, if the tweak costs you nothing, do the tweak. If the tweak is expensive, you have to judge whether the cost is worth the cost, if the juice is worth the squeeze.
All right, let me give the numbers on the same author penalty thing. Well, second post in one feed gets a 5/8 of the impact of the original post. Further posts decay towards a 1/4 floor, so 0.25. Out of network posts and most replies or reposts get a 0.75 multiplier, and only posts under 48 hours old enter the candidate pool. So, space your posts out so that you're not cannibalizing your own reach. Know what you want to say it well, and then stop talking. Try to stay inside that 48-hour window. Recycle strong ideas with fresh framing or new evidence rather than hoping your older post revives. Small accounts under about 1,000 followers and impressions can receive a modest early lift if the post is under 24 hours old. So use that window for your original content. Make any video at least 10 seconds long if you want the quality view signal. Avoid anything that predicts reports, mutes, or not interested. One strong negative prediction can erase a large pile of positives. So, Thomas, you doing all your political stuff on X is probably largely contributing to a negative score on you.
Probably, although the kind of stuff that goes viral often will get these negative scores, because if you say something and it's spicy and it causes 100 people to copy and share it to their group chats, and 2 people,
it has to be the right kind of mad. But if it's largely reportable, then
right. There's also a lot of we'll just say adult content that gets suppressed for various reasons, or is only shown to certain people, because X actually is very permissive for adult content, but it only shows it to the people who are looking for it.
Check the new Under the Hood pilot if your account qualifies. It shows the actual labels that are applied to your post and account, and will give you an idea of how you're doing.
All right. We had a story we were going to cover. We're going to hold it for next week. I'll just give you the headline. Mark Zuckerberg wants authors to own their own AI. This is such a big deal that it deserves its own in-depth coverage. But it's not particularly breaking. It's not going to affect you in the next week. So we're going to hold it. This is really important. So come back next week, because we do want to get to the Zeitgeist so that we still have time for our bonus Zeitgeist session for members only. So if you're not a member, you can pay to become a member of the Author Update channel. We post occasionally members only content. And we're going to do a breakdown of the Spider-Man movie, why it was so successful, what its cultural impacts mean, and what Spider-Man is telling us about what readers are wanting. It's not too late to become a member if you want a breakdown of that. It's also our way of avoiding spoilers for people who want to avoid spoilers, because you are going to have to take active actions to get spoiled, because we are going to completely spoil Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going in depth on it. So,
yeah. But we do want to do our Zeitgeist report. So Zeitgeist Report is our new podcast within a podcast where we talk about culture and how culture is changing so you can skate to where the puck is headed. We have a new logo for our podcast. So here is the new Zeitgeist Report podcast logo. So if you want to share the podcast with a friend, zeitgeistreport.com. We'll link you to the audio podcast of just the Zeitgeist Report segments of Author Update. I love how this is completely covering up Jonathan. You've been Mike Wazowski.
I'm being Mike Wazowski right now.
Look, I'm in the video.
I'm on a magazine.
So if you, because some of you are not authors, you don't care about our coverage of Barnes & Noble or whatever, but you do enjoy our coverage of culture, or you have friends who enjoy our coverage of culture, send them to zeitgeistreport.com. We have an exciting one today. Clinical pluralism, the writing technique that trains women to excuse evil. Jonathan?
So I'm gonna provide some context for stuff that happened this week, which kind of was the genesis of this Zeitgeist idea that we wanted to discuss. So this week, Lindsay Clancy was in the news, and there was a lot on social media because people were arguing about this. Allie Beth Stuckey jumped onto the story, and it created a lot of conversation, feedback, rage. There's a lot that happened there. Lindsay Clancy is the Massachusetts mother who strangled her 3 children in her basement in January of 2023. She has admitted the killings. Her defense centers on postpartum psychosis and over-medication. Prosecutors are arguing intentional murder. The trial is continuing this month in the Plymouth Superior Court. There are corners of TikTok that are saying her husband at the time is the real killer who framed her. And then the way the content pipeline works, it makes the theories feel natural. It's a whole long thing. And basically there's a lot of women coming out and saying, I feel for Lindsay Clancy because I've had postpartum depression too. I know how crazy it made me. So I feel for her and I just want to give her a hug. That's what I'm seeing a lot of is I wish I could just give her a hug. And it's like, yeah, but she killed 3 kids and she killed her.
Kids.
She killed her. No, those are 2 separate things. Killing 3 kids is different from killing your 3 kids. Worse when all 3 of them are in the basement at the same time and you're strangling them one at a time. At that point, I don't want to hug this person anymore. And it doesn't matter how crazy you are at a certain point.
So let's follow this pipeline, because the pipeline that got us here, where women are excusing a woman who killed her children one at a time, strangling them in front of the others, where they had to watch their siblings get strangled. Like in an earlier era, this would have been considered the most horrific act. Nobody would be justifying it. In fact, that there's lots of people.
They would be terrified of saying that.
Yeah. In fact, probably some of you inside, while Jonathan was telling the story, were justifying her because you have been affected by this cultural.
Yeah, you're like, I feel so bad for her. The problem is we don't feel things for people that have died.
And but a lot of it is fiction planted. So this came from fiction. This is a philosophy that came from fiction, and it's this rejection of moral clarity, where there's no such thing as right or wrong, sin or evil. There's just trauma, right?
Yeah.
The villain isn't evil. He's just experienced trauma, or she experienced trauma. And it gets particularly distilled for women, where women are never held morally accountable for their evil actions. The evil actions that women do are always the fault of the men in their lives, not the women themselves. And we see this a lot in fiction. And the most classic example of this is Wonder Woman 1984, where in Wonder Woman 1984, she causes a man to be possessed by the ghost of her boyfriend, who then controls this man's body. And then she sleeps with this man who is in no way consenting to this activity. And this was seen as a moral good. It was presented as a moral good in the film. And most film goers didn't have a problem with it because she was a woman. And she can't be...
A lot of people did.
A lot of people did, but I would say most didn't, of the people who watched it. It became a common critique of the film, for sure.
Well, something that the movie did was they changed the actor, right? So initially it was the guy who was possessed by the spirit of Steve Trevor. But then they switched it to Chris Pine. And so because people weren't looking at the face of the guy who was possessed, they were now looking at Chris Pine, which is her love. It helped people get past this. This is rape. Like,
but that's just one example. When I was brainstorming examples, there's many examples, one of which we may be getting to in our members only
yes, we are.
episode coming up, but we're not spoiling anything until we get there. But you see it with like Harley Quinn in the Birds of Prey stories, right? She's constantly killing people and destroying things and doing all kinds of harm and mayhem. Never.
It's okay because the Joker hurt her.
Yeah, she is a harmed and confused person. It's really the Joker's fault. The moral responsibility lies with the man, not with the woman. Women can't have moral responsibility. She's just a victim.
Which, let me just say, it's why we like Batman so much. It's particularly in the Arkham storyline in the video games, because he cares about the trauma, but it does not change the fact that he's going to punch you in the face and put you in jail.
And I think that people are getting fatigued by this moral system because more and more people are becoming victims of crime, and they're relating to the children who got strangled, right? They see themselves as the child who's watching his older siblings get strangled in front of him, and they are less relating to the perpetrator. So it used to be everyone was very much sympathizing with the criminal and like, oh, we're treating criminals too harshly. And the result of that is crime went way up. And now, and this is an ebb and flow that happens in society where we get really strict with tough on crime and then really lenient and then really strict and then really lenient. It goes back and forth. And right now we are getting stricter with crime. Crime rates are down across the country and almost everywhere because we're getting stricter with crime, because people are starting to associate with the victims. So for instance, a personal story. One of my top mentors when I was in high school was my choir teacher. Choir was a big part of my social engagement as a homeschool kid. So I didn't go to normal school. So a lot of my normal school, like social encounters, happened in my homeschool choir. We had a choir president and vice presidents, like student council type stuff was through choir. And I was also in the ensemble group, which was a group of just a handful of students who travel and sing, kind of like a glee club for college. And that director was a big mentor of mine. She mentored me all the way through high school and even in middle school a little bit. And I did the summer musicals, big impact on my life. And she was murdered. And when she was murdered, it changed me in my view towards murderers generally, because now I really associated with the family of the victims of the murderers. And I was genuinely angry that the prosecutor in Travis County did not pursue the death penalty for the guys who murdered her, despite the fact that they were eligible. In Texas, it's difficult to be eligible for the death penalty. Killing someone is not enough. You have to kill somebody and do other bad things at the same time, or kill multiple people. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened. It was really bad. Not that murder is ever not bad, but there are degrees of it. We learned about the degrees of murder in when I was on the grand jury. And like the example of the least worst murder is a husband who's been married to his wife for 50 years. She's on death's door and she's suffering and he can't bear to see her suffer. And she's on life support and he turns off the machine for life support and lets her die. That's murder, but it's not the same level of murder. And it's why murder is allowed to be punished at a big variety because not all murder is the same. And there's manslaughter and lots of differentiation. Not justifying that, what the man's did, the fictional man to his fictional wife, but just to kind of break it down. And society is going through this as crime is really bad and more people are victims of crime. And we've mentioned this earlier with our vigilante, right? Vigilantes kind of come and go in terms of how popular they are. When crime is really high, people are rooting for vigilante characters. And when crime is really low, they're not. And fictional characters will become more of a vigilante when crime is high and less of a vigilante when crime is low. So back to the moral responsibility thing, because there's a gender piece of this that is, I don't think we've fully teased out. And you may be contributing to the problem by not holding the women in your stories to the same moral standard that you hold the men to your stories to. It's very, very common. where the women's bad behavior is excused by the trauma they've experienced and the men's bad behavior is not. And the result of that over time is it's going to cause women in our civilization to become less virtuous than the men of our civilization, because if you have different standards for men and women, it has an impact. Like that's really harmful over time. And Roman history actually gives us a glimpse to what happens when female virtue drops too low. It can be very bad. I won't give the details, but just believe me when I say it's really bad. Virtue is good. High virtue standards are good, and they should be high for both men and women. Is what I'm advocating for.
Right. Females are the brakes on males. I recommend young men get married. I recommend they get married young, because it's going to turn you into a balanced man. It's going to put the brakes on you. You think I'm not balanced now? You should have seen me when I was younger. Before I got married, I was more like a weapon than I was anything. I was designed to destroy stuff, and my wife has helped me become more of a builder than anything else. But she's a virtuous woman. And if I don't have a virtuous woman, if all I have is a woman that does whatever she wants to do and then blames trauma, and that goes all the way to I had a hard day, so I'm not doing anything.
And it's all the way to AI. Are you familiar with the video game AI test? So you prompt AI like ChatGPT or Claude and say, my boyfriend is playing video games for 4 hours at night.
Yes, I know that test. I didn't know that was named that.
And then you say the same thing for my girlfriend, and AI will say, no, your boyfriend, that's very irresponsible for him to play video games for 4 hours at the end of the day. And then if you give it the girlfriend prompt, it's like, oh, it's important for your girlfriend to relax.
She needs to have her own space.
Yeah, she needs to have her own space. And it's a completely different moral standard. The only word that's changed is the boyfriend, girlfriend. And that is a result of the training data. It's a result of probably reinforcement learning, but it's mostly a result of the training data. The AI has ingested all this modern media where women are not held to the same standard, moral standard, responsibility standard, ethical standard, virtue standard that men are. And that has real knock-on effects for all of civilization. And it's something that you can do something about very simply, because no one will notice if you hold women to the same moral standard, because that's the normal way. It's like moral systems apply universally. I can't think of a moral system that doesn't apply universally. There have been moral systems that like apply differently based off of like your social status, right? So if you're an aristocrat, it was different. So like if, for instance, ancient Anglo-Saxons, if you murdered somebody that was of a lower station than you only had to pay a weregild to their family. And the weregild, which is like a payment for a dead person, was based off of how high of status they were. So if you were a noble who killed a freeman, you had to pay more of a weregild than if you killed a slave, you paid a lesser weregild. And weregilds persisted. We made the Germans pay a weregild after World War I. Like that term persisted. It's gone in the language now. Although Jim Butcher used it actually in one of his Dresden Files, which I was like, well done, Jim Butcher. Bring the term weregild back. People need to know what it is. So you occasionally will see that, but I can't think of any. But and I guess in terms of sexual ethics, sexual ethics have been applied differently to men and women.
Yeah. So the body count culture thing is that women are very much, it doesn't matter what my body count is. I'm just a girl out there having fun. But guys are saying, no, the body count matters.
And this is a big cultural shift as well, because I don't know if guys cared about body count. Even that language of body count is a relatively new term. That's a Gen Z term. In fact, let's survey the audience. Gen X and above, have you heard the term body count? Are you familiar with that term? Or is this the first time you're hearing it? So if you're familiar with the term, say yes. If this is the first time you're hearing it, say no. I'm actually very curious what the penetration of that phrase and that whole conversation is on the older generation. So if you're a boomer or a Gen Xer, if you've heard the term body count and you know what it means, say yes. If you don't know what it means, say no.
Mostly yes.
Mostly yes, but the older folks, it's interesting. The older folks are the ones who are saying no.
No, a lot of older
here's a Gen
folks are
Xer
saying yes.
no. So some boomers saying no. Yeah, very fascinating. So the yeses came in quick, but now the no's are coming in. Y'all can see it, those of you watching the video.
It looks about 70-30 for yes.
Fascinating. I would venture to guess there's not a single Gen Zer who is not familiar with the phrase body count, because it's become a core driver in it's a core status driver, and it's inverted actually. So a common slur that women will use against Gen Z men is that, oh, you're an incel, which is a term for involuntary celibate. Your body count is 0. Whereas men will use a slur against Gen Z women, you have a high body count, and they use various versions of the word hussy. So hussy gets updated for every generation. So
do you want to run through all the slurs that are being used?
No, I'm not going to unnecessarily antagonize the algorithm. I think the word hussy is pretty safe. Bimbo, there's there's newer terms, right? And that's assigned to body count. And there's also this concept that women lie about their body count, that women have a higher body count than what they, so you multiply by 3 is kind of the bro math
is what they say.
So if a woman says she has a body count of 3, she really has a body count of 9. And this is a big shift because boomers did not calculate this. I don't think it wasn't a core determiner. You're a blank slate going into a relationship, and your past shouldn't matter. Is my understanding of kind of the mainstream boomer ethos. It's a little bit different on the religious edges, I suspect. So we have. So I'm enjoying these kind of impromptu surveys of our audience, because it's an interesting opportunity for people in different generations to kind of give their perspective. But we are seeing a bifurcation where women are very much resistant to being young women being held to a moral standard, and are very hostile to it. And they're hostile to it to the point of defending a woman who murdered her own children in front of her own children. That's how far they'll go to defend.
And she doesn't know how she sounds to normal people, like,
or even just to men.
Here's the thing, because women have done this body count thing for a while, and feminism, there's been this great divide and this great separation between men and women in terms of value, that men are now starting to devalue women again. We're actually getting a regression of Western values, which has historically elevated women. Now young men are saying, you're calling me an incel. I don't make $500,000 a year, and I'm not 6'4", so you're not going to give me a chance at all. Fine. I don't think you're worth anything either.
Feminism went to war with chivalry for a generation or two, and now what they're finding is there's now a hostility where young men some young men have a very low opinion of women. And the romantic gestures of chivalry, not only are gone, but there's a real hostility. And antipathy.
There's a hostility. If you're going to be with me, there are going to be demands that you will perform. And it's a regression back to a time of misogyny and bigotry. Where women are not valued. Suddenly we're going back to, I traded my wife for 4 cows, and now she's going to do everything, and I'm going to get more wives too.
Or I traded 4 cows for my wife. Or the winning the wife in the poker game. There's so many old country songs where men win wives in poker games. I'm like, what kind of poker were they playing in the 1800s?
Do you know that beforehand or what?
So this is a major cultural pendulum that you can track going back and forth on kind of the value of high value of women, low value of women, going back and forth for centuries. And women crested their value, cultural value, probably about 5 years ago, probably right around 2000 or 2020, I would guess. A lot, or maybe 2023. A lot
Just
of things
before
peaked.
2020.
Yeah, a lot of things peaked right around there, and so the pendulum was still high. People have a very high view of women. Crimes against women are seen as worse than the equivalent crime against a man. Disrespecting a woman is seen as worse than disrespecting a man. Women still have a higher social value. Women are currently paid more. Like young women coming out of college are paid more than young men coming out of college. They're hired more. They're recruited into colleges more. There's a very high value of women, but the countercurrent rebelling against that has started. And so it's important to understand as we talk about these cultural pendulums, not to confuse direction with position. So you've got a pendulum and it's gone up, 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 and it finally crested, and now it's heading down. And you come on a podcast like us, and we're like, the pendulum, the value of women is declining, is not the same as saying the value of women is low, culturally speaking.
Right.
The value of women is still higher than it will be for the next 40 years, and it's higher than it's been for all but a few of the last years. But the value is falling, and men are starting to make more demands and have it's hard to articulate what I'm
you can
seeing with
actually
Gen Z.
you can actually see some women trying to fix it on social media, because they're the ones saying, no, I would absolutely treat a guy. I would never sleep with a whole bunch of guys because I want to be there for my guy. And she's raising her own value in the market is what she's doing. So we see some women trying to get ahead of this trend.
And the trad wife aesthetic is another piece of this, of women realizing that being good in bed now has a lower social value
than being good in the home.
Than being good in the home, or being pure, or being submissive, right? For the typical boomer woman, submissiveness is very there's a real hostility to this across the political spectrum. Submissive women, quiet, dutiful women, not a high respect for that. Whereas Gen Z is starting to have some breakaways where, like, no, I would totally submit to a man if he would retire me from my job, which is kind of how they would articulate it, right? It's very Gen Z framing of that. Like, no, I don't want to work this corporate job. I hate this corporate job. I'd much rather submit to a husband than to my boss or to my corporation. I'm going to have to submit to somebody, so I might as well submit to my husband. And that's a different articulation of it. It'll be very interesting to see how Gen Alpha navigates this. But this affects the hostility of this gender conflict. There's more conflict between the genders now than there has been in maybe 100 years. The historical rebuttal to the gender wars is like, the problem with the gender wars is everyone is sleeping with the enemy. But that's not the case with Gen Z. Gen Z is not sleeping with anybody. They're not sexually active. The stats on
low
Gen
alcohol
Z's sexual activity,
and low sexual activity,
very, very low. And because of that, they're becoming very hostile towards each other. They're not sleeping with the enemy, and they want to take the enemy down on both directions. And the kinds of stories that are doing really well are the ones playing into that dynamic. So what was the surprise hit of the year? It wasn't Spider-Man. Everyone knew Spider-Man was going to do well. The surprise hit was Obsession, which was a $10 million movie, $20 million indie movie, very small budget. And it went on to sell hundreds of millions of dollars. It outperformed movies with 10 times the budget from major studios. And the whole interplay is the broken relationship between men and women. It's got a toxic girlfriend. It's got a controlling boyfriend. And boomers don't understand why the movie's so popular. Whereas Gen Z are like, I feel this.
Yeah.
This is the gender war captured in a story. And if you can capture the gender war in a story in an interesting way, there's a whole generation of people who are desperate for that. And you just need to know what team you're on. You need to understand it, which means listening without judgment to the Gen Z kids in your life, even when what they're saying sounds crazy. Because if you're a boomer, all of the stuff about like submitting to a husband and is going to sound crazy. But that trend started with 50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
It started off as a fetish.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think we've already had that conversation, didn't we? Did we do that?
I circumlocuted the word fetish. I finally dropped the F-bomb on this show.
Okay.
It's hard to keep the Zeitgeist conversation purely family friendly because
we can't when the Zeitgeist is what it is.
Yeah, we're the hot mitt for the hot button issues, but we're still dealing with hot button issues, and sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. I think that's enough on this. I think we've said enough. We will be back in about. Do you have any final things you want to say?
Yeah, okay, there's one thing I do want to bring out because there's a solution to this, and that's to punish sin. When you read the stories in the Chronicles of Narnia, there are sins and consequences. Edmund suffered trauma, but his portrayal was still punished.
Yeah.
Diggory's pride
the narrator
causes problems.
Excuse Edmund's bad behavior by the fact that he had suffered from a war, his family had been bombed, he had to evacuate his city, right? All those things that would have been how it would have been interpreted in a modern story.
Eustace was failed by his parents, and Aslan still ripped the dragon off of him through an extremely painful process.
Jill
that did wind up redeeming him.
Yeah.
But he did not escape punishment for being the kind of person that he was.
Aravis was being sold into marriage with the man she didn't love, and that did not excuse her bad behavior. Yeah, this is a really good point. And that's part of what made those books so timeless, because moral systems, particularly the Christian moral system, is a timeless moral system. And the closer you hold to it in your storytelling, which means often having immoral characters.
Yeah. You have to start with
you to have immoral characters.
The problem with a lot of stories today is you keep the characters flawed, and it's like, no, the whole point of the adventure and the suffering is to help remove the flaws.
Yeah. I have a whole episode on this, a deep dive where we get into the theology and the philosophy and the morality of it. It's on the Christian Publishing Show. The title is The Key to Timeless Christian Storytelling Morality. But really it's the key to timeless storytelling, because it applies to Jewish storytelling, really any kind of storytelling. You have to have a clear moral framework for your story, because every story is going to have a moral framework, whether you want one or not. And so it's important for you as an author to pick one. Because the moral framework of your story is shown by the actions and the consequences. And when a book gets preachy is when the framework of the actions and the consequences is saying X, and then the author doesn't want X to be conveyed, and so they have a sermon that says Y. And that is the worst kind of storytelling. And it's very, very common right now in Christian fiction, and it's really common in woke fiction. The sermons are different.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the same.
Yeah.
Depending on the kind of Christian. But it doesn't work. Those stories don't work. People don't want to hear those stories. And if you want to learn about what people do want to hear, come back in 10 minutes for our breakdown of Spider-Man. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr.
I'm Jonathan Shuerger.
Live long and prosper.